All right, so map voting. Map voting, a new feature
Love it.
gives players more agency about what map they prefer to play on. Okay, whatever, fluff text. Start a very quick player competitive match. Interestingly, they added into quick play, which is good. 3 randomly selected maps will appear. Okay, each player will cast. I'm assuming you guys have seen this already.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Me and Star just looked through
Okay.
them. The map voting is great. Actually,
I'm so
the way they
excited.
implement it is interesting. I don't know if I love it, but we'll see how. It
I
plays
don't.
out.
Yeah, it's not my favorite, like the way they did it, but I do really like map voting. So
I mean, it seems like they've done a lot here. And there's a report tool feature. Okay, we'll get into that. 3 randomly selected maps will appear. Each player casts a single vote. Okay. During map voting phase, all text and voice channels to both teammates and opponents are disabled. That makes sense. Interesting that teammates aren't allowed to speak to each other, though. Because I feel like part of the strategy
No, you
would
are.
be, hey, all
Voice
text and
channels
voice
are
channels to
disabled,
both
but
teammates and
no.
opponents are disabled.
Team chat is enabled. Team chat is enabled. Only voice.
Oh, okay. That's like match chat. Okay, that's different. If as long as you can communicate with people what map that you want to play on, then that's fine. Votes for each map from all players are then displayed, and the game will then roll to see which vote is selected. Roll, but like, wouldn't it just be if one map has more votes than the other, then it's just gonna?
No, so how it works is like, say you have Circuit Royale, Havana, and Samoa, right? Circuit
Uh-huh.
gets 3 votes, Havana gets 2 votes, Samoa gets 0 votes. It rolls between the two to see with like preference given to the one with more votes. If it's close. So that like if it's a close vote but you win by 1 or 2, the winner isn't automatically.
Okay, so yeah, it's not
Given-
the end of the world. It's just like a chance of like, okay, if the air quotes worst map gets selected, it's not guaranteed that it's gonna come up.
Right, exactly.
If
But if
like
you
a
have,
nice
you
single
know,
vote.
if you have 80% of the people,
Then it'll pick it.
voting
Like if
for
it's
it,
overwhelming,
yeah.
it's not gonna. Okay. I think we've gone over this before, but do it again. I don't see why these changes for the general game, the system, were made outside of shaking up the game for the sake of shaking up the game. Because what was really the problem a couple of seasons ago was healing creep, right? And then the damage passive was introduced to sort of mitigate that. And then they've toyed around with the numbers here and there from season to season. But I felt like we were pretty fine. Like, I felt like the problem with the game at the current moment was just character individual balance like Freya. Not anything system related or not anything like necessarily meta related holistically. It's just one character is dominating so hard. So I
yeah. I mean, I'm a support main, so maybe I'm off base with this, but I didn't feel like healing creep had gotten too insane with the addition of perks, which I think is kind of the insinuation here, right? Is that perks have brought back healing creep and they want to address that early.
maybe not brought it back, but this is a failsafe in case that people start complaining about, oh, Lifeweaver's been buffed, oh, Lucio has more healing, Moira has more healing, yada yada, because I know those characters were changing in this
Yeah.
patch. And so
Yeah.
maybe it's a pre-fire. That's my best guess. As for the
I
base health
actually-
regen,
I
don't know.
That. I hate that. That I feel like is gonna feel really bad.
I feel like we've all gotten used to the muscle memory of when regen kicks in, and so I don't see the need to. I think if you were to do this, then you would do it for DPS and tank, but you would keep supports at a lower timer because it's like supports. They used to be the only people that had the base health regen, right? So when they gave it to everyone, supports lost that unique role passive when they gave it to everyone. So them having it a little bit like better than everyone else, even if it's just by a second, would make a little bit of sense. But I don't know. Everybody getting nerfed, I feel like we're already attached to the way that it is. But hey, maybe in the mid-season, or maybe they'll do an emergency patch if people don't like it. But either this is going to be like a negligible difference. This 5% is pretty decent, but this could be negligible. It could be. We'll just have to see from gameplay. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I don't like it either. I feel like any change that messes with muscle memory, I don't like. Because what's the point? Like, were we complaining about the base? No, we weren't. But what's the dev comment? These changes are intended to broadly increase the impact of damage roll heroes and slightly reduce the amount of healing sustained felt in moment-to-moment gameplay. Sometimes it does feel, from the DPS perspective, granted I'm very biased, sometimes from the DPS, or maybe tank as well, from a DPS or tank perspective, let's say you're dueling somebody else, specifically characters with high sustain usually supports those. In some cases, it's other characters, it's Venture, it's Doomfist, you know, it's these built-in passives that give them healing sustain, right? And then you will be out of combat for a couple of seconds, even though you're still like kind of in combat, so you're not actively fighting them, but you're not doing damage to them, but like you're still like kind of like fighting them, if you know what I mean, right? It can feel really frustrating that a character goes from half HP to full HP in a couple of seconds, but I feel like that has more to do with the amount of that they're regenning rather than the time that it takes for them to regen.
That makes sense to me. Yeah, I agree with that.
Because it is kind of frustrating for, like, let's say I'm dueling like a Tracer, right? And I get her to 60 HP. A really squishy character, that 150 damage that I did to her, however much damage, whatever math, 120 damage that I did to her, should be significantly more valuable than 120 damage that I did to a Mei. But both characters within 5 seconds get the regen. And so she's able, and especially because she's a highly mobile character, she's able to play her life for long enough that she can like sustain herself and live and like kind of just like exist and not die, to the point where now she's back to full again. And she, again, this is a character that has been majorly buffed with perks and has multiple blinks. It's extremely slippery, right? So I can see the frustration in that, in terms of like a 1v1 perspective, from a DPS perspective. But for everybody else, this feels like a quality of life nerf. And that's it. But we'll have to see.
I absolutely agree. But maybe it's nothing and we're overreacting.
Yeah. Junker Queen commanding shout. I like this already.
Yeah.
I like that they're changing shout. But let's see what they say. Commanding shout has been updated to provide stronger team utility and improve its overall impact. The adjustments reward well-timed use by increasing survivability for both Queen and her allies. Now that is fantastic, because the problem with Queen shout for me always has been, in especially non-coordinated settings, there isn't much of an incentive for Queen players to use it not selfishly. And now that the dev team is saying, hey, we want to push the ability from in the team play direction, let's use Queen shout like a Lucio speed by giving more incentive for you to use it as a team-wide buff, then that pushes Queen into that more facilitating tank role, supporty type playstyle, where, you know, the speed is just as valuable to your Genji and your Sojourn and your Lucio, or your Moira or whatever, as it is to Queen. And so that, to me, that's always been the fun part about Queen, is that she provides that team play element. And so pushing her more in that direction, I don't mind at all. So let's see what they did. Overhealth increased from 175 to 200. Okay, sure. That's a buff for her, just period. So that, I don't see the team in that. But hey, it's a buff. I like Queen. Allied overhealth increased from 50 to 75. 25 health. Not super substantial, but hey, makes you a little bit tankier. And for DPS and support characters, that's a pretty big difference, right? It seems unsubstantial, 25 HP, but that's 25 HP on squishy characters, you know? Like, if Tracer takes the overhealth perk, now she's like almost Mei HP, or like cast levels of HP, which to me is very interesting. Duration for self reduced for 5 to 4 seconds, and ally duration increased for 3 to 4 seconds. Yeah, that's just fantastic. That's fantastic. It makes Queen less Thanos in the 1v1, or like less threatening in sort of an unhealthy way where she can just press shift and then is really strong for 4 seconds, but instead reallocates that power budget in their kit towards how the ability, air quotes, should be used. So that's just a net positive change, I think. It's still a buff. Like, even though one aspect of the kit got nerfed, that's still a buff, bro. You got 3 buffs. We're chilled with that. That's a good change. Good change. Queen was already good, now she's better. Berserker overhealth conversion has reverted to Naga's durability, more balanced state finally. Okay, this is whatever change. Overhealth conversion rate.
Fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, a little bit of extra survivability. Mauga hasn't been too problematic. Yeah, he's been okay. In coordinated play, you still have some synergy with the Mauga. I think the Mauga comp will always be like very air quotes brain dead and like easy to execute and effective, and so just like off of playstyle. But the character from an individual perspective, for like holistically all phases of the game and all levels of play, was on a little bit of the decline after he was Thanos for a patch and then they Giga nerfed him. And so giving him a little bit of like a little bit of power back into survivability is not that much of an issue. I think the issue with survivability for Mauga has always been cardiac, so giving him ways to survive in ways that is not just directly giving him cardiac sustain is probably fine. Ram, I read the section before recording and I realized that, oh, now we're just kind of buffing the perks that no one uses. Both of these changes seem like we are not dead set on these perks being permanent in the game. And so we're going to buff them for now and see if people like them. And if not, then we're just going to get rid of them when the new perks drop. For whatever. I don't know if that's season 18 or 19, but I do remember them saying that they're going to change perks in the future. Perk overhaul. And so this seems like, okay, well, let's make the unpopular perks a little bit more popular. So
I assume that the perk overhaul that they're talking about is going to be more along the line they did like last season with a couple of the heroes, you know? Or at the beginning of last season, right?
What they said was season 18, and it was that every hero was going to get at least one new perk. I think is what they said.
okay, and that could mean that some perks are going to get removed or changed, but that probably means that every character remains the same for the most part. Maybe they change a couple of problematic perks, and then they just give everyone a third perk. And they just like the nuance comes from just everyone having a new one rather than changing anything. But I do remember them saying that Genji's was gonna get looked at. So I don't know. It's kind of like mixed signals from the dev team on whether or not perks are going to be addressed in the current game rather than just adding more. But we'll see. But to me, that's what these perks communicate in some fashion. Is like, okay, we're willing to address the unpopular perks. So that is a sign of hope. Sign of hope that maybe we're not going to be super quick to change things that we haven't. Because like we've given perks a little bit of time to bake, but it hasn't fully cooked yet. You know, like it's been, I don't know, a season or two since they were introduced, and people have kind of gotten the hang of them. But like, there are some perks that could be utilized a little bit more. I know, like for example, Soldier Stim Pack. There's a little circle of people using that now, and so, you know, perks that usually don't get looked at or the time of day. Eventually, as the meta develops and we discover more about them and like unique hero-to-hero interactions, maybe we'll come to a full consensus on whether or not the perk is good or not, and then we can decide from that point. Okay, do we want to change the perk? Which is what I'm assuming that Blizz is doing. They're giving it a little bit of time. Nanite Repair, major perk. This is the Vortex perk that gives you healing. Healing per second increase from 50 to 75. Decent buff, 25 per second, notable change.
Ram, I feel like you didn't really feel the healing on Ram from it, so hopefully this will make it so that it's more noticeable.
To me, seems like a nothing change, but there is potential. There's definitely potential in 25 HP per second. So that's not just like. For example,
well, you also have to remember, right, that the damage passive update is a direct nerf to that perk. So
right, and so it makes it a little, especially because Ram is a big hero. Ram's a big hero. He's getting off-angled by Tracer, Echo, Genji, etc. Freya.
Yeah, and he's always taking spam.
He's always taking spam. And so this, it does have to be taken to a grain of salt, because unlike the Queen, who also got a 25 buff, this is an HP per second buff. And so that is a very, very like high amount of healing. So maybe that they justified the plus 25 per second by giving the DPS a better passive. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Seems like a nothing change potentially. I really don't know. I also don't know that much.
No,
about
I don't
Ram.
think it'll be. I don't think it'll be a huge difference for him. I think it just keeps him relevant with the changes that exist.
Just a little bit better, yeah. Emphasis on keeping him relevant, because he already is relevant. But he doesn't seem like a character that really needs to be nerfed or buffed, because frankly, Ramattra meta is really boring for the game, because it's just, you know, you're kind of just AFKing and blocking, and then occasionally like punching in with Lucio speed, and so or Juno Ray, and that's just not. It's not very intuitive or fun, like tank cycle. I don't know. Maybe I'll make a video on Ramattra soon, but I think Ramattra just missed the mark. Period. But hey, that's me. For Zarya, Spotter and Graviton Crush receive targeted buffs to improve their effectiveness. And sure, okay, it's the same thing. So perks that were not popular for Zarya getting buffed. The Grav damage perk. Damage dealt over time increased from 30 to 40% of max health. Not a bad change. A little bit of extra damage on the Grav. Makes it a little bit easier to follow up on big Gravs. Like, this isn't going to matter too much for 1 to 2 man Gravs, because Zarya can generally, especially with right click AoE damage, finish the targets off herself within the Grav unless they're being multi-ban healed. But this is going to help you a lot in situations where you have 5 people in a Grav and Lucio is pressing amp and Kiri has Suzu and healing on everyone. And then sometimes it feels like you're getting punished for hitting a good Zarya ult. So this perk will allow you with an extra 10% max health to get to the damage breakpoint where you're able to actually kill people within the grav. And remember, this is in conjunction with you are not alone as a Zarya. You are grabbing with the implication that there's going to be multiple people following up on the grav. So it makes it a little bit easier to kill targets within the grav. I know we're not in a Giga sustain meta, but sometimes it does feel hard to kill people within the grav. So if that makes it a little bit better, then maybe that'll give Zarya players a reason to pick that over I think the one that lets you go to high ground with right click is the other minor.
I believe
correct me
so,
if I'm wrong. And so that one is just infinitely better than the Graviton Crush because typically you can do damage anyways. But hey, if this makes a notable enough difference, then great for Zarya players. Spotter major perk, movement speed increase from 15 to 25. Okay, same
I
thing.
really like that.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's a nice increase. Zarya, a character that is predicated off of having low mobility, so giving her a little bit more with a perk that is as like not situational but dependent on certain swings of momentum in the game as bubble makes it so that it's like, okay, it's not the end of the world. Like, we're not Giga destroying the character from a balance perspective, like making her broken, giving her or teammates movement speed, because it's teammates, right? It's teammates as well.
Yeah, it's
Movement speed for like a couple of seconds, like it's negligible. And targets already are basically unkillable within the bubble anyways. So hey, what's giving them a little bit of extra movement speed to reposition, right? That seems like a nice quality of life without making it so that Zarya is like Thanos running around without the help of a Lucio or Juno at Mach 9 and her teammates running at Mach 9. No, that just seems like a nice quality.
I think the other thing is that people would just take her other perk, where the left click pierces enemies when you have charge.
Right.
All the time, since you really don't have to change your playstyle much and can basically kill their backline and their frontline at the same time.
Versus
this allows Zarya to play a little more supportive of a playstyle if she has like a dive backline or something like that, you know?
This is more dependent on, do I have an Echo on the enemy team? Do I have a Tracer or Genji on the enemy team? Or like, hey, this has offensive utility too. Like, don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
10 movement speed. Let's say you like.
It only applies to allies, I don't think, or I believe. So the spotter perk reads, projected barrier activates ally health regeneration and increases their movement speed by 15%.
Okay. Yeah, then that buffs her that gives her a new support playstyle. Yes. But it's interesting because not only is it a support playstyle, but it's a utility based, because you can use the speed boost with this aggressively as well. Like if from my perspective as a Genji player, if I get Dash in Blade, I call for Bubble now. I have a mini Juno speed when I go in without the need to use a speed cooldown from my team. Even if it's only a couple of seconds, that's gonna give me, besides not only dash, but like the innate movement speed buff that Blade gives you, to just Mach 9 run at people with the Blade without using any abilities that would be more pertinent for the neutral. So
exactly.
So now we can bubble our Genji in Genji Zarya, and we have Juno speed for later, or Lucio Amp, or Queen, or not Queen Shout, but like abilities that give you movement speed for later. We can save that for the mid fight when we want to kite out, when we want to push in more, etc. Right? And so,
yep.
You know, pushing her into a more utility role with that, I don't mind at all. I think giving Zarya more nuance is what she needs.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think it gives her some more nuance to where she doesn't have to just be slotted into a more brawly role, right? She can fit into some more of these other comps, where you wouldn't necessarily see her.
Flat buff and dive. And I'm assuming that these are all holistic changes. They apply to 6v6. So
yeah.
Giving this buff to her also applies to double tank synergy. And so now that becomes especially potent. So this seems like a low-key a 6v6
the double tank
buff.
I didn't even think about.
Yeah,
that's a really big buff.
This seems like a 6v6 Giga buff. For 5v5, this is way more minor of a buff, but it's still pretty impactful. And so for Zarya, she was already pretty decent, at least in ranked play. I don't know about cohorts. I haven't been keeping up with the scrim or like pro play meta. I see a lot of Ram, I guess, and a lot of Orisa, and Dive isn't as strong. But hey, maybe this pushes Zarya into more of a Genji brawl dive hybrid role. We'll
I was gonna
see.
say I see her kind of in the same slot as D.Va now, right? With that more
Hybrid playstyle.
hybrid shifty
Hybrid
role.
playstyle, yeah. All right, Bastion. I think people have already memed on this change enough. It's kind of whatever. It's like it's nice for Bastion, but Bastion is still kind of poo. Part of Bastion's problem was his hitbox size. He is a character that doesn't.
So he doesn't get crapped on by Tracer and Reaper and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So bad.
The characters that have shotgun spreads or ranges that are very like breakpoint dependency, like Genjis and whatnot, it makes it just so easy for them to reach their kill threshold against Bastion because of how huge he is. Not from just a numbers perspective. Well, actually, yes, from a numbers perspective for characters like Tracer, Echo, etc., because they're just hitting more of their spread. But Reaper, etc. But also just how big the hitbox is in general. More of it is just getting hit. Like it's bad. And this is, mind you, this is on a character that has low mobility outside of grenade, which is a damage ability that you would rather use for that purpose. And that's his only option, and it's self-damaging. And he's no Pharah by any stretch, so it's not worth it, in my opinion, to be nade jumping all too much. So low mobility, and yes, he has the healing perk for a little bit of added sustain, but it's not enough. If the character gets antied, then he's just useless. If the character gets deflected, then he's like, and so it made it so that the high DPS potency of Bastion, the survivability trade-off from how immobile he was, combined with how he had an almost tank-sized hitbox, made him not nearly as viable in metas that didn't involve shield break. So if we're not in a Rein Sim meta, Bastion just falls off of a cliff unless he's giga buffed and has like egregiously high numbers. This is a very numbers-based character because of that reason. He doesn't have much kit nuance, and so he has to be really strong from a numbers perspective for him to be strong, or the meta has to revolve around a comp that he is good into or against. And so,
well, this also brings him more in line with the other hit scan, right? Like,
right, the other hit scans are small.
every other hit scan are pretty small hitboxes, so he kind of stood out and was really bad because of that, comparatively.
Yeah. Widow was thin. Cass is like a mid-sized character, but is balanced by being super tanky. Even kind of like hit scan flex hybrids like Mei are very, very tanky and justify having a mid-sized hitbox. And so Bastion just never really had that going for him. He was big, but he was like, he had HP, but he wasn't tanky, even though he had high HP, because he's just so easy to fucking hit. And he doesn't have
the other
any,
thing
like,
is the other hybrid ones you mentioned, like Mei, Torb, right? They're fat, but they're not tall like Bastion is.
Yeah, Torb is
He
really
kind of has
small.
the worst of both worlds, you know?
Yeah, Torb is big, but he's really small. Mei is big, but she's mid-sized, like, kind of small. And also, both of those characters have extremely strong sustain abilities that aren't tied to a perk. They're just, you have them and they're good. So, and yeah, Bastion's like, there was a point in time where the healing perk was egregiously overtuned and they nerfed it. But now that it's been brought online,
like
that was
2 weeks.
that was not very long. And so, with the direction that they're pushing the character in now, this seems like, it's not a whatever change. This seems like a whatever change, like, oh, funny, Bastion has been buffed. Why are they doing it? Huh? Like, this is like, it seems like a whatever change on the surface, but hey, maybe it improves the quality of the life of the character significantly. And it also is just a net buff in general to all of his DPS matchups that are hard, because the character really does well into supports and tanks. The problem is that he loses to almost every DPS in the game, bar none. And that was the problem with him. He completely incompetent in DPS 1v1 situations. Completely. Reducing the spread of Echo's Tri-Shot improves its effectiveness at range, making it a more consistent option for a highly mobile hero. Now, this is a change that I really like. I don't see why they did it, but hey, I can't complain. The character that I play, I love this. Spread decreased from 1.4 to 1.1 degrees. So that's going to make the projectile a little bit more consistent, medium to long range. It's going to be more of a threat.
Huge poke.
When the poke starts to teeter off and the tri-gun starts to go in separate directions. That's going to happen. It's going to feel like it happens a little bit later. And so the hitbox will just generally feel more consistent. So sometimes you will play Echo and you'll look like you hit a tri-shot, but in reality you didn't. Now it's going to feel a little bit more consistent, and you know, that's just a flat buff. Even if it's minor, it could be something, it could not be, we'll have to see. A lot of changes today have been mostly quality of life, And it really depends. Really depends on we have to play it to find out whether it's good or not. Because some changes you can kind of tell by the wording and by like what they're actually buffing that it's going to be really good or really bad for the character. These are like whatever changes that have potential. It's good no matter what. It's inoffensive change. No one's going to complain about that on either end. Which is good for her. Pharah, Helix Shield's minor perk. Now, I've seen Helix Shield get a little bit more usage, but the majority of people don't like the offset that you are unable to move in the barrage, and so everybody picks the moving barrage perk anyway. So this again seems like a way to sort of incentivize players to pick the less popular perk and experiment a little bit more with every character. Shield health regeneration triggers when landing direct hits with rockets. So you're getting rewarded for hitting the direct. You're not getting punished for hitting the indirect splash, but again, you are getting rewarded for picking Helix Shield. So it depends on how much shield health regeneration actually, like, is it the base amount that heroes get with like healing regen? Like, let's say like Echo all has shields now.
The way I'm reading it is that it just starts shield regeneration at the normal rate.
At the normal
right?
rate,
So,
okay.
As if you were out of combat.
As if you're out of
for
combat.
However many seconds.
Now, if it's max health based, or it's like a percentage damage dealt, then if that stacks with damage boost, we don't know because of the wording. It's assumed that it's general, right? But if it's not, then this has potential to be a giga buff. Like, if you are healing for a let's say 40-50% of damage boosted direct, you are going to be god.
I mean, I think it's a pretty big buff regardless, right?
Yeah, it's a good. It's
or
a good buff
you always took the move during barrage because Pharah's ult was like functionally useless, right? Without it, before you can move, you're almost guaranteed to die if you Pharah ult at any group of people.
Yeah, and so
they're all just gonna turn on you and insta kill you.
You were forced to, as a team, play around Pharah's weakness and either as Pharah be very selective of barrage and sometimes hold it for long periods of time. Otherwise, you just accept that you die. Or you do strategies like Pharah Lamp, where you throw Immo on Pharah, or Diva, and you just like AFK and hold Matrix for her, or Sigma Shield, whatnot, right? And now you have a little bit less of a dependency on that with the moving perk. But hey, maybe this gives you a reason to not go for that. If the Shields perk is so good in neutral that we're willing to have Pharah ult be bad again, then I guess that's what the devs intended with this one, is to just give you more choice.
Yeah, I think it works. I think it's worth exploring at least.
It's worth exploring, yeah. And I think the barrage perk seems good enough still that I wouldn't necessarily pick this perk over it, even despite whether or not this change is really good for her or not. And so I think that's the health that you want. We want perks to be rewarding no matter which perk you pick. It should not be a one size fits all where, you know, as Genji I'm picking Vampiric and I'm picking or not Vampiric, I'm picking the Blade lifesteal and I'm picking Meditation. Very rarely am I picking Acrobatics or the Blade Twisting, you know?
Yeah.
And so, or Sombra, like Sombra had a perk that was obsolete. That's not.
It was literally a nerf at one point.
That's
pick
yeah.
a major perk.
We're not doing that anymore. So the devs realized, and it seems like they're really rolling it out with the beginning of this new season. Before it was like we were sprinkling some perks changes here and there, minor tweaks, but now it seems like okay, we're really getting ready for a perks overhaul soon. Part of the reason heroes like Reaper and Tracer had their damage reduced in the past was due to the shift to the 5v5 format. Solo tanking less frequent peel made flank heroes more effective, along with their strong performance on certain maps and game modes like Push and Flashpoint. Maybe not for Reaper, but for Tracer, absolutely. Tracer is necessary on maps like Push and Flashpoint if you're not already running something like a Genji. This is now less of a concern with the introduction of map voting and hero bans, which help limit overperformance, so we're restoring some of their damage potency. Reaper definitely needs it. I'm not entirely sure if Tracer needs it, but we're going to get to her later. Damage per pellet increased from 5.4 to 5.75. 108 to 115 per volley. So that's buffing him in multiple aspects. That's buffing his damage, but because he's getting more damage per pellet, he's also getting a lifesteal buff by proxy. And so
no, bigger than that, pushes him to the 225 breakpoints that he didn't reach before. Before 2 shots would be 216 damage, so he would still leave his target with a few HP left if they were 225 squishy.
Okay.
Now
so,
if he hits 2 full volleys, he hits that breakpoint. He does 230 damage.
but my thing is that will matter to characters that don't have shields that are 225, because now we have Pharah Helix, right? We also have Echo
That's true.
recently with
That's
shield
true.
change, and so that's only going to matter to a very select few amount of characters like Mercy and Kiri that are 225, right? And so it matters a lot for very
also,
specific matchups, but generally
It
speaking,
also does assume you hit a full volley, right? Like,
Yeah,
which
which is
not
rare,
super
which is
easy
rare.
to do on
You-
those skinny heroes.
at most you're gonna hit 75 to 80% of the spread if you land a shot directly. Only on tanks are you realistically always gonna get the 100% spread if you're close range, right? And so yeah, like this is more so like if I like literally am point blank on top of you, I will 2-shot body shot 225, or like is it 3-shot? I actually don't know. Reaper is so bad. I genuinely don't know. I think it's what, like a 2-shot melee? Yes? No?
Right now, or with the buff, or without? With or without?
With the buff. With the buff.
With the buff, it's a two shot.
Oh, so before it's a two. Okay,
Before it's
that's
2-shot
pretty,
melee.
That's pretty notable. That's pretty notable if you're in point blank.
Yeah.
Big asterisk if you're in point blank. For medium ranges, this just is like basically just a minor buff to his lifesteal. But close ranges, then that's a massive breakpoint change for the matchups that do matter. But again, you'll have to see whether or not shields make it so that the breakpoint matters for Echo, Pharah, etc. But granted, you're not going to be playing Reaper into those characters anyway. Soldier, Stim Pack,
Just a
PC
keybind
button-
change.
yeah, okay, keybind change, whatever. Can we stop
Tracer's
doing
gonna
this?
be a demon. Tracer's gonna be a demon.
Genuinely, can we stop doing this? Tracer is fine as is. Anytime the character is not strong, it is because the meta around her actively denies her from being strong. It has nothing to do with the character's strength. The character had fine damage enough already. She was 175. You nerfed her the previous patch because Blink was way too overpowered with a major perk. And so, I don't really get this. Getting her damage back online? Tracer's getting back some of the damage she lost due to past format inaccuracies. She's already getting passively buffed because DPS as a role is getting buffed this patch. Right? So, not only are you getting 5% more damage, and Tracer is remarkably easy to apply the damage passive on, mind you, you're also getting 0.5 per pellet. So, I don't know. This could be a Giga Tracer meta. I'm not complaining necessarily, but this is very unnecessary. I would have rather given Tracer another season, especially given that we have passive damage buff for DPS, and waited to see whether or not, like, how is she performing, yada yada. Because there's no way that this dev whatever is based upon win rate or whether or not she's underperforming. There's no universe that Tracer's underperforming. If you go to the top 500 leaderboard, or hell, if you go to, like, if there was a way, overbuff, Masters GM, you don't even have to go to top 500 necessarily. She has a good win rate. She does fine. She's a good character, almost no matter what. Is it because in lower ranks she's not as strong? No, that doesn't seem like that, because then they would buff the kit in some fashion rather than a numbers tweak. But she doesn't need a kit buff, and so the devs know that, and they're in some type of dilemma where they feel the need to, like, change the numbers for the sake of changing the numbers. This gives me Genji vibes, where, like, they just feel like, hey, we ran out of ideas for how we want to change this character, so let's just revert to how it used to be. You know, like, Genji ammo goes from 30 to 24, 30 to 24, 30 to 24. And granted, the most recent change for him, it made sense for him to go to 24 because they were buffing him in another aspect. But I'm getting the similar vibes from how it used to be with him with this. Why? Just why? Character was fine. Change improves Venture's damage output by increasing fire rate. Negligible change. Not negligible,
Yeah,
but
fine.
if this improves some kill combo for a Venture player, I don't know because I don't play the hero that much, then good for them. Venture, they are really weird because the primary is decent for poking, but it doesn't have insane range, and so Venture is usually poking from positions that she's kind of AFK in, or that they're really AFK in, that are close range by nature. And usually with this character, you don't want to reveal yourself because you want, like, a one-shot combo. So
I feel like it's a quality of life change more than anything for Venture players, right? The annoying thing about playing Venture is the one-shot changes.
Right, and so if this buffs it, then like great for them, horrible for everyone else. The one shot is the frustrating aspect of the kit. It's already strong enough as is, so they don't want to do any numbers tweaks in regards to that. If this just mildly improves quality of life and doesn't giga buff the important stuff for Venture, then that's fine. Venture, I think, was already decent. The Sim, Lightweaver, weird ass like Baptiste comps that Venture does, or May, etc. That Venture does quite well into. We're already on the up, especially in pro play, from what I can tell from watching Korea, EU, etc. And so Venture didn't seem like a character that needed to be buffed nor nerfed, just fine as is. Had a decent place in the meta as an occasional counter pick for those like beam characters where you don't want to play the Genji Rekko or Pharah. And so yeah, just quality of life, I guess. If that makes a difference, Venture players, let me know. I really don't know. Lifeweaver. Successfully cleansing a debuff now reduces life grip's cooldown. Cleansing Grasp. Okay, but that's the perk that's worse, though.
That's the point, is that they're buffing the perk that's worse.
Life grip cooldown is reduced by 4 seconds if a debuff is cleansed.
So if you use your cleanse, right, so say you grip somebody that has anti, your grip will have a 4-second reduced cooldown.
Okay.
Compared to if you just grip someone normally.
If normally, if the debuff is... Okay. Okay, so that incentivizes you not only to use the ability a little bit more smart, but...
Yeah.
Also, regardless, if they happen to be debuffed, possibly as you're thinking of pulling them, then you'll get rewarded regardless.
Yeah. It's just a straight buff.
Just a straight buff to a lesser perk, which is fine. If that means that Weaver picks it over the other one, great. If you know a lot about Lifeweaver, like let's say you're a Lifeweaver player, then this is going to be big for you because now this changes how you play certain matchups, right? So like if you play Lifeweaver into an Ana, now if you with the knowledge of this perk now, you're a little bit more incentivized because 4 seconds is almost 5 seconds, and 5 seconds is a very big difference for a cooldown as strong as Life Grip is. Not to mention, Cleansing Grasp already has its effect, and so... Interesting.
It just, it gives Lifeweaver a little bit of utility, right? That, he didn't have before and is now incentivized even more to take. I like it.
If we're going to not rework him, and we're going to push him more in the direction that he currently is in right now, then we do need to make his Healbot playstyle as incentivized to Healbot as possible. And so this gives him more avenues. I absolutely agree. Okay, Lucio. Interesting. Base healing
Just
increased from 16 to 20. Flat heal buff. Oh, you know what? That makes sense. Lucio, as of late...
Go ahead.
He has a strong kit still. His neutral is strong. Amp is obviously very strong. But very rarely are you using his healing utility because it's tied to Amp, and you would rather Amp Speed, because Amp Speed gives you a way to kite out, which is better than just straight up mitigating or healing the damage that you would have taken from that interaction, as opposed to just leaving the interaction entirely. Majority of the time you were not healing on the character, and when you were, the healing was so unsubstantial that why would I pick Lucio in the majority of situations unless it's Juno plus Lucio over the Juno, which gives you speed, albeit less consistent, but speed is already a swingy enough ability as is. Lucio players were holding the cooldown for long periods of time, waiting for swings of momentum to use speed, and so if we're already doing that, why don't we use the character that has innately high healing output and a better ult? So giving Lucio a little bit more healing utility, granted it's not great still, it's still Lucio, is totally fine. Totally fine. Makes
I think
it a little
this
bit
is
better.
Another compensation buff for the
DPS passive.
being buffed.
Right. And
Yeah.
so it's not going to feel as impactful, however, it's still buff.
Right, on a character like Juno, for instance, that DPS passive isn't as important because she has such strong healing already, but when you go with someone like Zen, Mercy, Lucio, that have lower heals per second, I think it definitely impacts them a lot more.
They're going to feel it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Moira is the same thing, and so they're doing this across the board for supports. I'm surprised there's no Mercy. There is Zen here, but it doesn't matter in the context of what we're talking about. It doesn't have anything to do with orb. It has the duality perk. Interesting. Well, I guess that has something to do with orb, but you get what I mean.
Yeah. Mhm.
Biotic grasp, secondary fire, healing per second increased from 70 to 80. Okay, increased her healing HP by 10. Pretty notable. Not a ton, but sizable amount. We wanted to boost Moira's overall healing output. She doesn't offer as much direct utility. Yeah, I know. Compared to other support heroes, and we're reducing some healing impact in this patch through the damage roll. Yeah, okay. So they outright say it. They outright say it, which is interesting. I like this communication from the dev team. We don't have to draw the conclusion ourselves. They're gonna tell us outright, this is what we want to do with the patch. This is why we think that we're going in this direction. Yada yada, right? So granted, we have to scroll deep into the patch notes into Moira section to hear that, but to hear it directly come out of their mouth is a level of communication that we have not seen from the dev team in years, if not ever. So recently, Alec and Gavin and the whole team, devs at Blizz for balancing, they've been more upfront, which I really appreciate. So it seems like they actually have a head on their shoulders now when it comes to balance. So I like that. I like hearing that they just, what they want to do with the patch, their intentions with the patch, they say outright. Thank God. Very minor thing, but it just shows that they're willing to communicate and they actually touch base with the player base, right? Like they understand what our concerns are to an extent. Obviously, they don't get it right 100% of the time. But hey, how can you?
Yeah, but the communication at least gives us some insight, and I really like that. I totally agree.
It's been so long. The Jeff Goodman days where they would just throw darts on the board and hey, whatever, we're gonna change whatever the dart lands on. Now it seems that balancing is more targeted towards what is currently viable. We don't have situations like we did with Goats and Double Shield where we're going 2 years without a substantial patch nerf to it. And yeah, it gets nerfed here and there, but it's more so flavor of the week. Like Genji gets thrown into the mix randomly, Zen gets thrown into the mix randomly, Break gets thrown into the mix randomly, you know? Now it's just like, no, we're being thorough. But anyways, reducing some healing. Yeah, we're happy with the cadence of managing our healing resource and swapping the damage to restore it. Right. So we opted to adjust the direct healing rather than the resource availability or a similar mechanic. That makes sense because if you buff the amount that Moira can spray, she becomes even more brain dead. And the one thing with the character that was even moderately difficult was managing her resources properly so that you weren't spray healing all the time and you actually did the tap heal to give, like, let's say you want a DPS goes on an off angle, you use like a mini Zen orb from pretty far away, you tap the healing on them and then they go off and do their thing and they get healed as they go. Minor use for that. If you just made it so that Moira could spray and pray, then yeah, it's a healing buff, but it's not very intuitive. It just makes her a little bit more brainy than she already is. And so just giving her flat HP buff mitigates some of the grievances of the damage passive for support, while also maintaining her status quo. Like, we don't want her easier than she already is, you know? But at the same time, she's definitely on the weaker side, so giving her buffs, I take no issue. Granted, I think she could use more buffs in the direction of anti on Biotic Orb, right? Or is it Biotic Orb? Damage Orb.
Yeah.
Same thing. More in the direction of that, giving her offensive utility to provide for the team, rather than purely just heal bot and then I don't die, which granted is value in of itself, but like when that's all you can provide, you would rather the other options in the game that do it maybe not as good as her from a healing perspective, but do way better from her from a damage perspective, right? And so making her some sort of middle ground between the two, maybe she doesn't have the best damage utility, but she still has some, so she doesn't feel like we're trolling when we pick her in higher ranks, would be the direction that I would want to take this character. They've already been taking her in that direction. I want it more rather than just like, okay, we're buffing her healing because healing is worse, you know? Like, great, good for her. This is not enough. This is not nearly enough. Same thing with Lifeweaver. Like, Lifeweaver top to bottom needs a change. Like this is fine for now. Let's like, the character's been getting more playtime, weirdly enough, on maps like Circuit with BAPComp. I don't know why. If it's good, great. But like, we'll see how the character develops in the future. Moira's not on the same boat because there's no meta to develop with her. She's just easy and there's no nuance. At least with Lifeweaver, there's a little bit of nuance. So, I don't know.
Hell yeah. Big Lifeweaver buff.
You have to be careful with these heroes is my point, and probably is going to need a rework down the line. But hey, for now, you know what? These aren't bad. Zen, duality is struggled due to the number of conditions required for activation, sure. Increasing the converter damage improves its effectiveness when those conditions are met, sure. Okay, so we're not doing anything major to the perk, we're just making it more rewarding for the amount of effort that you put in to activate it, so, sure. Increased converter damage from 30 to 40. I would have liked to have seen a character that has been phased out slowly from the game as Zen outside of poke maps, and even then you prefer Bap and Alari more and more these days, or just go for Juno because the ult is so fucking strong, like unbelievably strong. You know you've gotten bad to a point where you have a character that ultimate has been nerfed 3 to 4 times at this point. I don't know the exact number, but has been nerfed multiple times at this point, and in general has been nerfed multiple times at this point. And on a maps where she's air quotes not as effective, you're still picking her in 80% of the situation, right? And so to me, Zenyatta's niche has been eliminated because of the support ultimate power creep that we've seen recently with the advent of Juno, right? And so I would have liked for his orb to have been buffed from a healing perspective to fall in line with, not only does he need to be buffed in general as an individual, because I think he's a fun hero. He could use a little bit more time in the limelight, not just as a flavor of the week, but like, you know, when Zen isn't being played on poke maps as the poke support, you know you have a problem. Fix an issue where the matchmaker would often backfill players in their matches that were not near their MMR. What? I'm sorry, what?
That's crazy.
You know,
I feel like that wasn't talked about enough. Huh.
I saw a TikTok about it. Like a silver player got backfilled into like a GM champion quick play lobby.
That's insane.
Blizzard.
Wow, what a horrible experience for everybody. What a horrible experience.
Blizzard, you cannot be serious. AAA developer, you cannot be letting that happen. So hey, I'm glad that they've mentioned it, but also the fact that this is even something that they need to change is mildly embarrassing. I'm not gonna lie.
It was a super common bug. I only saw one person post about it, but I did feel really bad for that one person.
Speaking of AAA, we have our first typo in the next next patch note.
Is it here?
This
Fix
is,
an issue where Ana's mythic weapon did not change color based on healing or
This
damage.
is for Ashe. This is listed under Ashe. So is it for Ashe's mythic weapon? Is it for Ana's mythic weapon?
Oh. Wait, so Blizzard, lock in. Fix an issue where Ana's mythic weapon changed color. Because
I'm really hoping that was Ana, because I was seeing that bug a lot.
No, it's definitely Ana, because the Ana, the rose one for Ashe does not change color. It's just red, right?
I don't know.
So I think, yeah.
No,
I
it
think
doesn't change color. I was making a joke. Sorry, I said it too seriously.
Okay, well done. I don't know, because the mythic weapons, like I'm not trying to spend money on mythic prison or any of that crap. Good for people who like using those skins. But this, I was thinking more along the lines of Plat to Masters range games or Diamond to GM range games. But if there were genuine examples of Silver getting matched into a champion lobby, and it were, even if as seldom as it was, come on, Blizz. But hey,
it was like they got like backfilled. It was like a quick play. It was like GM to like champ, like quick play. So it's not that big of a deal, but it
Still
was
a bad experience, though.
yeah, it's a horrible experience.